So, 100 episodes ago, when this podcast was launched, we started with a very simple human question. Who actually does European projects? And the first seasons were dedicated to getting to know the real experiences of partners in the ground, on the ground, from local NGOs to cross-border research centers, listening to people actually building innovation all across Europe. Then naturally the question shifted to the mechanics a little bit. Started to be, how do we get funded? How do we master the open calls? But as we navigated those first seasons, the backdrop of our world was already structurally shifting. The pandemic had passed, but the war in Ukraine had fundamentally altered Europe's security. So we went to asking a much more dangerous question, but also a strategic question. Are we funding the right future, or are we just funding our own extractive dependency? Just think about our last episode with Jan Gerlach from the Wikimedia Foundation. While tech giants build trillion-dollar AI models trained on the open knowledge of Wikipedia, who is actually paying to keep the servers running? Are we letting platform capitalism deplete our digital public goods? So welcome to the celebration of 100 episodes of InnovEU, the EU Project Chronicles. Today, I'm going to distill the absolute best insights from these 5 seasons with dozens of global experts and over 150,000 data points into a single roadmap for your next project. So if you want to know exactly what evaluators, VCs, and European decision makers will be looking for in the next decade, stay put. Let's connect the dots. This milestone episode is brought to you by my new book, Transition Science in the Economy. It is the ultimate synthesis of everything we've discussed over these 100 episodes, mapping the green, the digital, the new globalization, the war economy, and the housing crisis transitions. So search for it on Amazon. Thank you to everyone who has supported the book and the podcast so far. So when we launched season 1, the focus was tactical and deeply human. We spoke with partners from Italy, Bosnia, Denmark, multiple countries in Europe, in America, in the Americas, South and North, in Africa and Asia. We explored capacity building, social economy, and the foundations of EU consortium. The goal there was to build partnerships that would actually work in the real world. By season 2, we had to confront the macro strategy. We analyzed the Draghi report and the Global Innovation Index. We learned from our guests that writing a good proposal wasn't enough. If the structural foundations of Europe were fragmenting, it wasn't enough. The realization was kind of brutal. Europe was producing great science, but failing at scaling it. Then, in season 3 and 4, we stopped looking at isolated funding calls and start looking at the 5 structural transitions reshaping our world. So we brought in experts to show us how the green transition might fail without proper digital integration, for example. We exposed the painful truth of the housing crisis transition, that you cannot have a dynamic, innovative workforce if a whole generation is priced out of living in our major cities. And we mapped the reality of the war economy, which was already redefining in Europe's industrial and funding priorities from day one in this episode. Actually, not just Europe's, but it has been more dramatic in Europe. The biggest lesson from these seasons: balance. You cannot win a research grant today just by pitching a green idea, if on the other hand you ignore digital and social externalities, for instance. You must answer multiple transitions at once. Well, that brings us to season 5. The season where we took off the gloves and asked who actually owns the future that this research, these projects are supposed to build. We brought in the heavyweights of global tech policy. So we had Nick Snisek taught us that Europe's strategic advantage isn't pushing the trillion-dollar frontier, but mastering diffusion and interoperability. We had Luke Julia, the co-creator of Siri, shocked us by revealing that 95% of AI pilots fail because they just chase the hype instead of building practical ROI on the data layer. And his three-layer conception of AI was the most important notion I learned in this podcast, I have to admit it. But then we had Gemma Galden-Clavel. She proved that algorithmic auditing is the fine gravity engineering constraint that ensures true digital sovereignty. And as Cory Doctorow and Ethan Zuckerman warned us, when platforms operate without constraints, like the ones Gemma told us, they don't innovate. They extract. They trap your data, which brings us back to our conversation with Jan Gerlach. Wikipedia is one of our last open infrastructures. If your EU-funded AI project relies on extracting data from the data commons without contributing back to its sustainability, you are participating in the lazy tech and platform extraction that Gemma told us about. So the consensus from season 5 so far, it's not over yet, is a warning to every deep tech founder and researcher. Don't build your innovation on extractive infrastructure. Own your data layer, budget for technical compliance, and fund the resilience of public goods. So today, this is the ultimate decision question for the next 100 episodes of your career. When you write your next funding proposal, or when you pitch your next startup to an investor, ask yourself this. Am I proposing an isolated technological gimmick that relies on extracting value from public infrastructures? Am I just building another app to tie your shoelaces? Or am I building a resilient, sovereign architecture that really solves the transition gaps? If your project creates a dependency on an American or Chinese mega platform, rethink it. If your project ignores the social externalities on the middle class, maybe you should rewrite it. You must build projects that defy gravity and protect the data commons, going back to Gemma and Jan. So, 100 episodes to the incredible guests who share their mind with us, from researchers in small European towns sharing their daily struggles to the pioneers of global tech. To all of them, thank you. Thank you very much for being here. To those of you who listen, subscribe, restack, and share this podcast with your consortium, your consortia, your friends, your partners, thank you. Thank you very much. You can search the playlist where you find the guest names and teams per episode in the Substack post. The link to that post is in the video, the show description. And in that post, you have links to every platform. And well, please read Transition Science in the Economy. We are just getting started. My name is Fernando Gaspar, and I hope to keep building projects that don't just get funded, but projects that really transform the world. See you in episode 200.